Well, good evening, everybody. It's good to see that we have quite a few people who have tuned into tonight. I hope that everybody can hear me. If anybody can just quickly indicate to me in the chat box so I can just make sure that the audio is working, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, well then, welcome everybody to this first time that I'm doing this, so I appreciate everybody tuning in. As I've said with our letter, due to our current situation, we can't get together at school, so I'm glad to see quite a few people who've tuned in tonight. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try and run through this as quickly as possible so I don't waste your time. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to add them to the chat box. I'll try to get to them as I go along. If not, there is a little option at the end and we can have a chat there. So, tonight is all about subject choices, and I'm glad to see so many people tuning in because this is such an important part of what you will be doing, grade 9s, within the next 2 weeks. The choices you make tonight are going to have an impact for the rest of your life. So please listen carefully, think about your choices before you make them. I'm going to show you this little slideshow that I have going on here instead of seeing my face. I'm sure you don't need to see that. So let's stick to the things that are actually important. And I'm going to start with just saying that there is so much information available online these days, and not just online but from universities, and I want to take this opportunity just to tell you that when you choose your subjects, please make a choice into a field of study, not a specific career. So what I mean by that, if you want to become a surgeon, for example, go into the field of medicine. This means that you have slightly more breathing space once you get there. 'n belangrike ding is ook, as jy vakke kies vakke in 'n rigting waarin jy belangstel. En maak seker dat jy weet wat die rigting is, en dit is iets wat vir my baie moeilik is om vir almal te verduidelik, en dit is iets wat jy maar op jouself moet gaan soek. As 'n voorbeeld, so 'n paar jaar terug het 'n graad 9 kind na my toe gekom vir 'n bietjie inligting, en ek vra toe vir hom, maar jy weet, wat wil jy gaan doen na skool? En hy sê toe vir my, nee, hy wil gaan huise teken. En ek sê toe vir hom, okay, so jy wil 'n argitek word? En toe sê hy, nee, hy wil gaan huise teken. En dit was vir my nogals 'n interessante een, want wat dit vir my basies beteken het, is dat die jong man nie geweet het, dit is wat 'n argitek doen nie. So my voorstel op hierdie stadium is baie, baie belangrik. Maak seker dat jy weet in watter rigting jy wil ingaan. Gaan kyk wat is beskikbaar, voordat jy jou vakke kies. While you're thinking about that, I think it's also very important that you be realistic about things like, for example, maths. I said this to the grade 9 classes as I handed out the papers. If you get less than 50% for maths, be realistic. Maths in grade 9 is still relatively easy. It's quite a big jump to grade 10, so reconsider taking maths. And I'm going to talk more about maths and maths lit slightly later on. Remember that you are choosing subjects now in a very interesting time, because I've researched quite a lot about this, and people reckon that professions that you are choosing subjects for now, they don't exist yet. They're still on their way. More professions are evolving every single day. Some researchers reckon that the average 18-year-old today will have up to 8 different jobs before retiring at the age of 65. That's not working for 8 different companies, that's 8 different jobs. So if you have a field of study, that kind of helps you because you can stay in that field and just go to a different job. So let's just, before we go on to the next section, let's just have a look at your options right now. Right now you have 2 options. The Department of Education says that grade 9 is your first exit point from the school system. So at the age of 16, students are allowed to leave the educational system. These learners can attend occupational schools, FET colleges, apprenticeships, etc. The second option is the one that we're going to focus on tonight, and that is, as jou kind besluit om graad 10 toe te gaan, volg hy of sy 'n akademiese roete. Die doel daarvan is om dus op te eindig met 'n matrieksertifikaat, 'n nasionale senior sertifikaat, en dan natuurlik die opsie om na 'n tersiêre instansie te gaan, soos byvoorbeeld universiteit of iets in daai lyn. The first option is kind of an interesting one because many people immediately say, no, there's no ways. But the thing is that we still need people who are in occupations. That is very, very important. We need plumbers. We need mechanics. We need carpenters. And interesting that especially in Europe, these people are actually highly sought after because we don't get them as much as we used to. So keep that in mind. It is a possibility. But for tonight, we are going to focus on going to grade 10 and following an academic route. So, kom ons kyk gou net bietjie na die proses van hier af. Waar gaan ons van hier af? Nou, heel eerstens, graad 9. Wat wil ek word? Watter beroepsrigting wil ek volg? En dit is iets wat ek ongelukkig nie vir jou kan sê nie. Dit is iets wat jy self moet besluit. Sodra jy dit weet, dan moet jy begin kyk, watter vakke het ek nodig? Watter vakke kan my help? Ons gaan kyk bietjie later. Party vakke moet jy hê. Party vakke is wat hulle sal noem nice to haves. Begin dink aan watter punte of simbole jy nodig het om te kwalifiseer. You need to keep in mind that many directions that you want to go and study in, even if you have maths, even if you have physical sciences, that by itself is not enough. You might have to have a minimum of 70%, a minimum of 80%, and even then they might only take the top 20 applicants, for example. So if you want to go into certain special directions, you need to make sure that your marks are at the best they possibly can be. In grade 10, you're going to start working very hard. Lay the basis for the next 3 years. Keep in touch with new developments and regulations in my field of study. We've had this. I've actually had a situation this year where a grade 10 student had to change subjects because due to new regulations, they had to have a different subject by the time they finish matric. So keep on top of that. Ensure that your marks are kept at that level that you need. If needed, make final subject changes by the start of term 2, and we'll chat again about that a little bit later on. Grade 11, at this stage, you know what you want to go and study. Now we have to go and decide, where do I want to study? And then, are my marks good enough for entry to my chosen field of study? Again, having maths doesn't help you much if you only barely pass it every term. Then it's a problem. Apply at your chosen institution, end of grade 11, extremely important, that part. And then grade 12, ensure that my marks are kept at a point where I will qualify. Now let's look at our subjects. Now, firstly, we have to have our 4 compulsory subjects, of which there's of course your home language, Afrikaans or English, first additional language, life orientation, and then maths or mathematical literacy. Then we have our 3 elective subjects. So from that group over there, those are the subjects that we currently have at Nico Malan. You need to choose 3 of those. Now I'm going to look at some of those subjects in slightly more detail as we go along. But for now, those are the subjects, and you will see this on the papers that I actually handed out to the grade 9s as well. So where do these subjects actually come from? As ons kyk na EBW in graad 8 en 9 gaan na ekonomie, besigheidstudie, rekeningkunde. En dit was een van die vrae wat vir my gevra is deur die graad 9's 'n rukkie terug. Hoekom het hulle so baie vakke in graad 8 en 9? Want hulle doen 'n bietjie van die en 'n bietjie van daai. En hierdie is die rede. Dit gee jou die kans om so ietsie van elke vak net te kan sien, wat is rekeningkunde, wat is dit, en dit help jou dan om jou vakke vorentoe te kies, want in graad 10 split ons hierdie vakke, soos byvoorbeeld EBW, NW natuurwetenskappe gaan na fisiese wetenskappe, lewenswetenskappe, tegnologie, IGO en verbruikerstudie, SW gaan na geografie en toerisme, kuns en kultuur gaan ons na visuele kuns, en dan is daar die nuwe vakke wat bykom, wat julle nog nie veel mee te doen gehad het, en dit is RTT en IT, en ek gaan bietjie later daaroor gesels. Now, the subject groups are extremely important. When we to a timetable for the school. The subject groups help us to be able to accommodate children and the teachers that we have, because as you will know, we don't have an endless supply of teachers who are able to do every single subject. And that's why we have these subject groups. Hierdie vakgroepe is op die bladsy wat ek vir u uitgedeel het, en op die bladsy waar op die graad 9 is hulle finale vakkeuse aandui, sal jy ook die instruksies sien, en daarso sal jy sien dat dit belangrik is dat hulle een vak in elke groep kies. Met ander woorde, een uit groep 1, die huistale. As jy by groep 5, 6 en 7 kom, is dit gewoonlik waar die probleme begin, want dit is waar jy jou keusevakke gaan na kyk. We have tried over the last 2 to 3 years to have more subjects in every group to allow the students a wider choice, sodat hulle nie geforseer word om 'n vak te vat wat nie noodwendig is wat hulle nie wil vat nie. Ongelukkig is dit baie moeilik om vir almal te kan cater, so ons probeer, en as jy miskien vashak op 'n stadium, asseblief voel vry om te vra, en dan kyk ons waar ons miskien 'n verandering kan maak. Leerlinge wat byvoorbeeld RTT vat, CAT vat, sal sien dat RTT in al 3 groepe beskikbaar is, wat beteken dat mens redelik kan rondspeel met die vakke om iets te kan inpas. Byvoorbeeld, kom ons sê, jy wil IGO vat en jy wil CAT vat, kan jy IGO in groep 5 vat en CAT kan jy dan vat in groep 6 of in groep 7, al is CAT ook in groep 5, en ons gaan bietjie later weer daarna kyk. On the next 3 slides, I just made a little bit of a summary regarding specific programs and what you might need for those specific programs. Hierdie is nie gebaseer op 'n spesifieke universiteit nie. Ek het gegaan en ek het na baie van die universiteite gaan kyk en ek het dit net so bietjie bymekaar probeer vat om eer idee te gee van wat beskikbaar is, waarna toe mens moet kyk. Asseblief, maak seker by die universiteite, gaan gesels bietjie met die universiteite, e-mail hulle, bel hulle, en vind net by hulle uit, ek wil BCom gaan swat, presies wat het ek nodig. Nou sal jy sien, hier is 2 kolomme wat ek hier bygesit het, en ek het hierdie ook op die uitdeelstukke gesit, wat ek vir die graad 9's uitgedeel het, en die belangrike een is die verpligte vakke. Verpligte vakke is non-negotiable. If you want to go and study into that specific direction, those subjects have to be in your subject choice. You have no other options, they have to be there. You will notice that, for example, the 2 languages and life orientation are with every single one of these. They have to be there. And then maths or maths lit. The last column, our optional subjects, these are what most universities refer to as nice to haves. It's not you must have it, but it's a nice subject to have to give you a little bit of background knowledge for that specific direction. Ek gaan nie deur elke liewe een van hierdie gaan nie, dit is op die uitdeelstukke gewees, as jy nie een gekry het nie, asseblief vra net by die skool of by die kantoor, en dan kan ons vir een stuur. En ek het probeer om 'n redelike verskeidenheid hierso in te bring, om dan net so 'n idee te gee van wat gaan aan. On our next little slide, we start looking at subjects and what would I then need? And when we look at the elective subjects specifically, want dit is waar die probleem lê. Watter vakke het ek nodig? En ek het 'n paar opsommings hier oor die volgende paar slides. Byvoorbeeld, as jy in 'n argitek, ingenieur rigting wil ingaan. Physical sciences, non-negotiable, have to have it. But then what about the other subjects? EGD, what an amazing subject. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. It's such a nice subject to have if you go into that direction. It gives you so much background knowledge with regards to drawing, for example, on AutoCAD. Geografie. As jy 'n huis wil bou, dan moet jy 'n redelike goeie idee hê van wat onder die fondasies aangaan, sodat jou huis nie begin kraak nie. So dan moet jy weet, hoe moet daai fondasie lyk? En om daai fondasie dan reg te kan doen, is dit 'n baie goeie idee om geografie te hê wat vir jou kan verduidelik wat is nodig, wat is sand en wat is klei, en dit klink vreeslik basies wat ek nou probeer sê, maar verstaan die rede daarvoor. Ek het daar by medies het ek gesê lewenswetenskappe, fisiese wetenskappe. Die interessante ding hierso is dat as jy medies gaan swat, is lewenswetenskappe nie 'n verpligte vak nie, wat vir my altyd interessant is, maar fisiese wetenskappe is wel. Maar natuurlik as jy medies toe wil gaan, beteken dit jy het 'n belangstelling in biologie, in lewenswetenskappe, so dan volgens my moet jy daai vak hê. Ek het daar bygesit rekeningkunde en RTT. En die rede hoekom ek hulle daar bygesit het is, as jy die dag miskien 'n dokter is en jy het jou eie praktyk, is dit miskien 'n goeie idee dat jy weet wat in jou boeke aangaan. Dat jy daarom kan kyk dat alles reg is. Terselfdertyd kan jy ook dan miskien eerder kyk na RTT as rekeningkunde glad nie vir jou interessant of iets is nie, want let's face it, how many businesses do you walk in these days and they do not have computers? It's kind of an important thing there. So dit gee jy net 'n idee daarso. Maar nou wat nou as jy sit op hierdie oomblik en jy het geen idee wat jy wil gaan swat nie. En ek weet daar is baie graad 9's wat in hierdie posisie sit. Nou wat doen ons dan? Wel, ons het ek 2 opsies hierso gesit. And the idea with these 2 options, subject options, is just that it gives you a very, very wide range. In other words, it can help you to go into more than one field of study, so that you have slightly more options than pigeonholing yourself into one specific direction. Soos byvoorbeeld opsie 1 het ons daar lewenswetenskappe of IGO, saam met fisiese wetenskappe en REK, wat baie loopbane oopmaak. Opsie 2 lewenswetenskappe saam met CAT, saam met geografie. Weer eens 'n klomp verskillende rigtings wat daar so oopgemaak word. So dit is een van die opsies waarna 'n mens kan kyk. Die derde moontlikheid is, wat as jy nie regtig beplan om verder te gaan swat nie? You are not really planning on going to university. University is not really your main goal. At this stage, you are rather considering to go and go straight into a work environment. Maybe, I know there are quite a few grade 9s that talk to me about being part of their parents' business or something like that. Well, then you've got these options to go and look at. Not everybody is an academic giant. Let's face that. Not everybody is somebody who'll sit behind their books and get 95% and that's all they do. And this gives you a little bit of an option. Does this totally negate university? Not at all. But it does drastically reduce the directions you can go. So dis opsies. En dan het ek ook al onderby geskryf dat hierdie 3 opsies gaan gewoonlik gepaard gaan met wiskunde geletterdheid. En ons gaan, soos ek gesê, ons gaan bietjie later gou-gou bietjie daaroor gesels, dat jy 'n beter idee het van die verskil tussen dit. En ek dink ons moet gou-gou so bietjie daarna kyk. Kom ons kyk net eers na wiskunde en wiskunde geletterdheid, en ek gaan nie hierso op verskriklike tegniese terme ingaan en punt vir punt verskille hierso sit nie. Ek wil hier net 'n idee hierso gee. En wat ek altyd vir ouers hier verduidelik is dat toe ons op skool was, het hulle vir ons wiskunde gedoen, en ons het al hierdie goed geleer van wiskunde en simpel goed soos persentasies uitwerk en al dit, maar hulle het nie regtig altyd vir ons gewys hoe om dit toe te pas nie. En dit is waar wiskunde geletterdheid vir my 'n ongelooflike belangrike vak is. Want dit gee ons die wiskundige agtergrond, maar hulle wys ook daarso hoe om byvoorbeeld 'n huispaaiement uit te werk, hoe om 'n karpaaiement uit te werk. En dit is vir my belangrik in vandag se lewe vir iemand wat nie noodwendig in 'n wiskundige rigting ingaan nie. Een belangrike ding wat ek hierso wil sê is, en ek het dit aan die begin gesê, wiskunde is nie vir almal nie. Let's face it, some people are not mathematical people, en dit is ongelukkige feit. Dan wil ek voorstel, asseblief moenie wiskunde vat nie. Ek is baie bekommerd oor leerlinge wat wiskunde vat, hulle sukkel met die wiskunde, hulle sukkel om die wiskunde deur te kom, hulle raak negatief oor die wiskunde, en kort voor lank is hulle so negatief oor wiskunde, dat het begin uitkring na hulle ander vakke, en dan begin hulle akademie drasties agteruit te gaan. So asseblief kyk daarna. Daar's 'n groot sprong van graad 9 na graad 10 toe in wiskunde. Wiskunde geletterdheid, ek gaan nou 'n snaakse ding sê, maar dit is nie 'n skande om wiskundige geletterdheid te vat nie, glad nie. Dit is 2 heeltemal aparte vakke. Dit is nie in die ou dae 'n standaardgraad of 'n laergraad weergawe van wiskunde nie. Dit is 2 aparte vakke wat gebaseer is in dieselfde rigting, maar is 2 verskillende vakke, so asseblief dink baie mooi daaraan. Toerisme is die volgende vak wat nie op graad 8 en 9 regtig bekend is nie. En wat ek hier wil sê is, asseblief onthou, toerisme is nie 'n maklike vak nie. Dis iets wat ek wil hê, wat ek baie duidelik wil oorbring, daar bestaan nie so iets soos 'n maklike vak nie. wat ons in die ou dae gepraat het van 'n stopvak. Daai vak wat jy vat net om iets te vat. Pas op daarvoor. Ek kan byvoorbeeld sê toerisme, daar's ongelooflik baie leerwerk, baie navorsing, baie praktiese navorsing. Maar terselfdertyd is dit nie nou 'n vak wat net een kant toe gegooi word nie. Dit sluit ongelooflik baie komponente in van ander vakke, soos byvoorbeeld daar's bietjie geografie in, daar's bietjie ekonomie in, daar's bietjie besigheidstudie in. Dis 'n goeie kombinasie om te vat saam met besigheidstudie, saam met geografie, selfs saam met verbruikerstudie, as mens in daai tipe rigting wil ingaan. En Suid-Afrika is 'n ongelooflike goeie plek vir toerisme. We have so many tourists from around the world coming into South Africa, so it's a really good space to go if you are not interested in going into an accountant or a doctor or something like that. Think about it. It is a very large market out there. Die volgende vak wat ek net vinnig oor wil praat is consumer studies. And consumer studies is more than just cooking. That's very important to understand. It teaches you how to interact with clientele, business strategies to draw in customers, and also specific terminology related to the field and even basic etiquette. So please don't think that this is just about cooking and you're going to make a pizza and you're going to have an A at the end of matric. It doesn't really work that way. There's a lot of work going into that subject. Die volgende is ekonomie en besigheidstudie. And dit is 'n moeilike een vir baie mense wat nie regtig verstaan wat die verskil tussen die twee is nie. So ek gaan eers net sê, vir ekonomie is bietjie wiskunde kennis is nogals redelik belangrik, want hulle doen baie goed soos byvoorbeeld grafiekontleding in die vak. Werksetiek is belangrik. Daar's ons baie werk, baie memorisering wat daarso te doen is. Ekonomie, as ek hier kan lees staan, sê hulle is using limited resources effectively to suit the needs and wants of consumers. It includes external factors, influences within the business and country. So economics is about our economy as a whole, the country, how everything interacts, the worldwide economy, how everything interacts with each other. A lot of terminology in the subject. When we go to business studies is more focused on the workings of one business, specifically a business and how the business interacts with other business, business proposals, business plans, and how this business can and should interact with consumers, with customers, and how to satisfy what they need, how to make your business better. So even though it's on a smaller nature, it is still business orientated. So I hope that gives you a slightly better idea between the two of them. Then the last line there, we have EGD. And EGD, for me, is an amazing subject. This is a subject that I wish I could have taken when I was at school. And it's an amazing subject if you're interested in architect, engineer, something like that. They produce drawings, mechanical, civil, electrical technology. They do house plans. One of the most amazing parts of EGD is the fact that they spend quite a lot of time using a program called AutoCAD. And AutoCAD is all about creating drawings and house plans, etc., on the computer. And this is amazing. A few years ago, I talked about this at a meeting, and one of the parents said that they had to go and do some or other training with regards to AutoCAD, and it cost him like 8 or 12,000 rand to go and do this relatively short course. And the program itself is also very expensive. Now, we have that at school. We have a teacher who is very good at AutoCAD and drawings. So it's an amazing subject to have if you're interested in that direction. Dan gaan ons oorgaan na CAT and IT. And CAT and IT is my personal wheelhouse. These are the subjects that I'm involved in. And to give you a very brief idea of the difference between the two, in IT, we create the programs. In CAT, we use the programs. That's the basic difference between the two. Again, this is not a higher grade and standard grade situation. They are two very different subjects. There's a slight overlap with regards to theory between the two subjects, but with the practical content in the subject, they are very, very different. In CAT, we focus on what we call an end user experience. In other words, we look at using programs like Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Access, how to interact with those programs, how to use the programs with each other. We look at how these programs are used in businesses. And we also do a little bit of website designing with HTML in grade 11, which is quite nice to give you a little bit of a programming experience without going deeply into programming. IT itself is information technology. IT is a difficult subject. I'm not going to lie to you. It is not an easy subject. In IT, I teach you how to program a computer. This is like learning a new language, quite literally. They call it a programming language for a reason. This is like deciding to take French as a 16-year-old. Not impossible. We have nice big groups for the last 2 or 3 years, and they are enjoying the subject immensely. It is a very satisfying subject, but as with maths and EGD, please keep in mind that for IT you need to put in your hours. It is not a subject that you're going to do a little bit at school, forget about it for the rest of the day, and expect an A at the end of the year. That is not going to happen. You will have to put in your time. The other thing that I will recommend, especially in the times we are right now with the pandemic hitting us, with schools closing, one of the major stumbling blocks we had with CAT and IT is that many students don't have computers at home. Now, I want to recommend that for CAT, you have access to a computer. If you don't have a computer yourself, just have access to a computer so that you can go and practice on there. We do have a lot of computers at school. The centers are usually open during breaks. During this time we don't open due to sanitization rules, but usually the centers are open for students to work there as well, and we also open the centers in the afternoons, many afternoons, so kids can work there as well. For IT, it is compulsory to have a computer. That is non-negotiable. For IT, as I said, it's a language that you learn, and as with any language, if you don't use it, you are going to struggle with it. I will provide the software that you need, which it's a programming language called Delphi. We have an account with Embarcadero, the company who distributes the software, and I install that. The students get that as part of the package, no extra costs involved in any of these subjects, so that they can work at home, which was very nice now during the lockdown period, because I could actually keep on teaching the IT students because they all had computers and they could all actually go on. So please keep that in mind. Now, with all of these subjects, and basically every single subject, there's something that is very important, and I want to underline that, and that is that you have to have a work ethic. And I am worried about this. I am worried about students not really putting in the hours anymore, and that is important. This is an academic school. This is an academic direction that you're going. For you to go in that direction, you have to put in your time. You will have to work hard. You can't sit back and expect good marks. En ek wil hê almal moet dit asseblief verstaan, en ek het dit vir die graad 9's gesê ook. Dis ongelooflik belangrik. Daar is nie maklike vakke nie. Daar is nie vakke wat jy vir 'n halfuur in die klas gaan oplet en dan gaan jy vergeet van die vak en jy gaan eksamen skryf en dit gaan maklik wees en jy gaan 'n A gemiddeld kry nie. Dit gaan nie gebeur nie. So asseblief maak seker dat jy baie hard werk. So, next, let's look at our university entrance. If we want to go to university, what do we need? Where do we go? And there's a sentence there at the start that says designated list is no longer in effect. Now, this has been true for 2 or 3 years now, but every now and then I still get queries with regards to this. At a stage, we had a designated list and only certain subjects were eligible for university entrance. And you'll see at the bottom of the slide, I also said there, taking CAT and or tourism has no impact anymore on qualifying. Those subjects also count towards your APS score, which we'll get to in a second. So forget about that. If anybody tells you, listen, you can't go and study if you have CAT or tourism, not true. you can. So I want to go and qualify, I want to go and study. What do I need? Firstly, for a bachelor's degree, you need 50% for 4 approved NSC subjects. To study a diploma, you need 40% in 4 subjects. Now, all the subjects we have at Nico Malan are approved NSC subjects. Life orientation is just the only one that does not factor into these 4 subjects, which means of your 7 subjects that you have to choose, excluding LO, the other 6 to go for a bachelor's degree, 50% in 4 of them, or 40% or more for a diploma. And that is extremely important. That is one of those non-negotiable items. If you want to go and do a bachelor's degree, but you only get 25% or something like that, you actually will not be able to go and study. Okay, so please make sure that you check that. And as you go along during your 3 years, please make sure that you do that you make sure of your marks. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now, the APS score. The APS score is what they use to check if you qualify for the specific direction that you want to go and study in. Now, these are extremely important. Most of the universities on their websites, they have APS score calculators. My recommendation would be that somewhere by the end of grade 10, go onto one of these websites, put in your subjects like I did there, add what your marks are around about at that time, and see what your APS score is. Take that score, go and compare it on the website to the specific direction that you want to go and study in, and make sure that that APS score is above what you need. That is the most basic way that I can explain this. So make sure about that. How they calculate that at this stage, I'm not going to go into. It's just important that you understand that is what the APS score is. Each subject is awarded an APS score, and that APS score depends on what level your marks is. Like, for example, you can see on the right-hand side, I added some random marks in there just to have an idea. So, for example, if you want to go and study education, you want to become a teacher, you'll see that they have a minimum APS score that you have to have. Offhand, I'm not going to say what the score is because this might differ from one university to another, but let's say that that APS score is 34. And you add your subjects like I did on this screen with the marks like that, you'll see the APS score for that is 38. So then you know you are fine, your APS score is higher than needed, so you can actually qualify to go into that specific direction. Once again, this is something that I would recommend that you do on a regular basis, just to ensure that your marks are correct, your subjects are correct, so your APS score is fine. Next, some very important points to consider. Firstly, mathematics is compulsory when taking physical science. Compulsory. This is not a Nico Malan rule. This is a national rule from the Department of Education. You cannot take physical science with mathematical literacy. Now, this is a problem because that means that if you get to grade 11, for example, and you see, oh, I'm struggling with maths, I want to drop maths, but I don't want to drop physical science, that can't happen. If you want to drop maths, you have to drop physical sciences then as well. Now, this is a major problem, and we'll get to that at the end of this slideshow, but remember that. Compulsory when taking physical sciences. The third bullet, CAT and IT may be taken together. In the past, it wasn't possible. For the last few years, it is possible. You can take both, especially if you're interested in going into an IT, computer-related field. You can take both of those subjects. However, I would recommend that IT be taken with mathematics. En die hoofrede hiervoor is net dat die wiskundige begrip wat hulle leer in wiskunde en die probleemoplossing in wiskunde is ongelooflik belangrik saam met IT. Can you take IT with Maths Lit? Yes, there's no rule that says it's not allowed, but I would not recommend that. It makes it slightly difficult. If you're in that position, please come and talk to me when you have a chance. The next bullet is also very important, as this might have an impact on us by the end of this year when we finalize these subject choices. If less than 10 students choose a subject in a group, the subject might not be offered in that specific group, and the subject might not be offered at all. This is a problem, as we can't have classes with 1 or 2 students in the class. That is a problem, so please keep that in mind. As dit sou gebeur, dan sal ek met daai betrokke studente praat, ek sal hulle eenkant roep, ek sal met hulle gesels, en ons sal kyk wat ons kan doen. As dit 'n vak is, soos byvoorbeeld CAT, rekenaar toepassingstegnologie, en in groep 5 is daar net 3 kinders, maar in groep 6 en 7 is daar 30 in elke groep, dan gesels ek met daai 3, en ons kyk of ons hulle vakke net so kan ruil, sodat hulle nie ander vakke hoef te vat nie, maar ons ruil die groepe net, sodat ons niemand meer in daai groep het nie, maar ek akkommodeer hulle net op 'n ander manier in die vakkeuses. Dis een van die redes hoekom ons so baie vakke in meer as een groep het. So hou dit net asseblief in gedagte. Hierdie kan ek ongelukkig nie sê totdat ek nie al die vakkeuses op my tafel het en ek al die vakke kan bymekaar tel en kan kyk waar die getalle opeindig nie, maar ons sal voor die einde van die jaar met hierdie leerlinge praat as daar so 'n probleem is. Volgende punt, vir visuele kuns, IGO en IT, sowel as verbruikerstudie, wat nie nou daarin is nie, maar verbruikerstudie ook, is daar so beperkte spasie. Wat beteken daar gaan sifting plaasvind? As ons byvoorbeeld, as ek byvoorbeeld IT as 'n kan vat daarso, in IT kan ek nie meer as 20 leerlinge op 'n slag akkommodeer nie. So wat ek dan doen is, ek gaan voor die einde van, voordat ons al die goeders afhandel, gaan ek die IT-oukies wat IT wil vat in graad 9, gaan ek bymekaar kry. Ons gaan so 3, 4, miskien 5 klasse in die namiddag hê. Ek gaan hulle so bietjie basiese programmering leer. Ons gaan 'n toets skryf, en tussen daai toets en hoe hulle reageer in die klas, sal ek kan sê, hoorie, ek dink nie jy moet IT vat nie. Jy het nie heeltemal die probleemoplossingsbrein om dit te kan doen nie. Ek dink jy moet miskien eerder CAT vat. Wat nie 'n skande is nie. Soos ek sê, IT het 'n spesifieke tipe persoon nodig. Ek het kinders gehad wat 80-90% gemiddeld gehad het, reg deur graad 8, reg deur graad 9, reg deur graad 10, hulle kon nie IT bo 40% kry nie, want hulle is net nie aangelê in daai spesifieke rigting nie. En ek wil probeer om, en dieselfde vir visuele kuns, dieselfde vir IGO en IT, ons wil net probeer om hierdie kinders voor die tyd te help met 'n regte vakkeuse, en nie dat hulle 6 maande of 'n jaar mors in die vak, en dan 'n ander vak moet gaan vat en weer inhaal in daardie vakkie. So dis een van die redes vir die sifting. Die ander probleem is ook in IGO en IT en visuele kuns en verbruikerstudie het ons net een personeellid wat daai vak aanbied, so ons het net een klas. Byvoorbeeld in verbruikerstudie het ons net soveel stowe, so ons kan nie meer as, ek dink 30 kinders vat in daai klas nie. En dis hoekom ons sifting daarso moet doen, ongelukkig. So asseblief hou dit in gedagte. Ons sal nie net iemand wegjaag nie, dis nie waaroor dit gaan nie, maar ons gaan deurgaan en deur 'n siftingsproses gaan, sodat ons dit op 'n ordentlike basis kan besluit wie die vak neem en wie nie die vak vat nie. Vakveranderinge is die volgende een. En hierdie kan ek vir u sê is 'n baie groot probleem op hierdie stadium. Die departement van onderwys wil nie regtig hê dat kinders vakke ruil nie. En ek verstaan hulle redenasie daaroor. Want soos wat ek nou net gesê het, every time you change a subject, you have to catch up on the work that you've lost in the subject that you are changing to. And this is quite a big issue. If you change, for example, from IT to geography at the end of grade 10, you've missed a whole year of geography. So more often than not, that what happens is the child moving from one subject to the other subject actually does worse in the new subject than the subject they left, because they have to catch up on all of this work. So this is one of the reasons why we have to talk to each other, so that we can get to a point where you choose the correct subjects, where you choose subjects that you know you will be able to do, that there's no need for you to make subject changes. Maar as jy 'n vakverandering moet doen, dan is daar so ons skedule. Hierdie vakveranderinge word deur die departement goedgekeur. Ons kan nie net 'n vakverandering doen intern nie, dit moet deur die departement goedgekeur word. Die departement het spesifieke datums, hierdie datums word aan die begin van die jaar vir ons gegee, maar ek kan vir u sê dat om en by vir graad 10 is dit in die eerste week van kwartaal 2, moet enige vakveranderinge afgehandel word. Dan in graad 11, voor die einde van Februarie, afhangende van watter datum hulle kies, kan hulle weer, en dan aan die einde van graad 11, graad 12, geen vakveranderinge nie, onder geen omstandighede nie, die departement sal dit nie goedkeur nie. Let ook op, in graad 10, daai eerste week, kan hulle nie meer as 2 vakke verander nie. Maksimum 2 vakke, nie meer nie. Begin van graad 11, net 2 vakke, nie meer as 2 vakke nie. Einde van graad 11, net 1 vak vir ingang graad 12. Now remember what I said about physical science and maths. We've had problems in the past with students trying to push through with maths, even though they're struggling. And then they get to the end of grade 11, they realize, I can't manage with maths anymore. I cannot do maths anymore. So I have to drop maths. And then I have to give them the bad news that, sorry, you can't drop maths. Because if you drop maths, you have to drop physical sciences as well. And at the end of grade 11, you may only drop 1 subject. So the only way I can help a student like that is to drop physical science, and they will have to continue with maths until the end of matric. So please make sure of that. Choose your subject very, very carefully. Mathematics is not the end of the world. There are many, many, many other directions that you can go with maths literacy. Please don't forget about this. I've written down here a few things, like, for example, nursing, biokinetics, business management, a BA in development studies, any bachelor's degree in education except for mathematics, diplomas in IT, interior design, journalism, a bachelor's technical degree in nature conservation, a pharmacist technical assistant. All of these are also possible if you have mathematical literacy, as long as you then at least have a good mark in maths lit. Most of these, they then say that you have to have at least 60% in maths lit to go into those specific directions. So please don't think that if you don't have maths, you can't go to university. That is nonsense. I hear people saying that. That is not true. It is just certain directions in university that you cannot follow. Met ander woorde, asseblief maak seker dat julle julle vakke reg kies. Okay, so, waar gaan ons nou van hier af? I've already handed out the subject choice forms to every single grade 9. If you have not received one, please just contact the office. They have electronic versions as well that they can email you. These subject choice forms, and I will show you an example of that in a minute, have to be back by the 11th of September. Please no later than this. We have to plan for 2021 with regards to teacher placement, classes, a timetable. So it is extremely important that we have these before the 11th of September. I still have to collate all of these numbers so that we can check where everything goes. Please fill in these forms with your child and indicate the subject choice, and please use a pen. I'm always worried about pencils because they tend to be very light and I might miss something. As a parent or a guardian, please sign the form. There is a place where you can sign, and by the way, all of these instructions are on the right hand side on that page if you don't get everything right now. Please sign it before giving it back to me. It is a good idea to contact somebody for career counseling or aptitude tests. In that handout that I gave you, I added 4 names at the bottom. These are people in our area and one in Port Elizabeth that specialize in this. Please feel free to contact one of them and go for a test. That is important. One of the problems that I then get is, maar hoorie, ek wil gaan en ek wil my kind vat na een van die mense toe, maar ek kan eers 'n afspraak kry die 12de September en die vorms moet die 11de September al in wees. Wat maak ek nou? Ek gaan vra asseblief, vul die vorm in soos wat julle dink op hierdie oomblik. Gee die vorm vir my terug. Gaan vir die toets, hoor wat hulle sê, maak 'n finale besluit en laat weet my dan. Die hoofrede hiervoor is, dat ek het ten minste dan al 'n vakkeuse. Want wat ek oor die algemeen vind in 95% van die gevalle, is dat die vakkeuse wat jy instuur en die vakkeuse wat deur die toets aangewys word, is daar miskien 1 of 2 vakke wat verskil. Maar dan het ek ten minste teen daai tyd al tale, ek het gaan in watter klas hy LO gaan vat, watter wiskundige geletterdheid ensovoorts. So stuur dit in, dui miskien net vir my op die forum aan as jy wil, my kind gaan nog gaan vir 'n toets, en sodra ek klaar is met die toets sal ek terugkom. Ek gaan my e-posadres aan die einde gee, en dan kan julle dit net vir my e-pos en ek maak dit reg. Maar asseblief stuur die vorm so lank terug voor die 11de September. Ek gaan al 191 vorms van die graad 9's moet terug hê teen daai tyd, sodat ek dit kan bymekaar maak. Do any research needed, including contacting tertiary institutions, visiting websites, speaking to professionals in the chosen trade or field. That last section to me is important. Take your child to go and talk to somebody. If they want to become a lawyer, take your child to go and talk to a lawyer. Because especially now, I use lawyer because I had this situation as well with a child that wanted to become a lawyer because they did not really know what a lawyer does. They see all of the TV shows and they see these people shouting and going on in the chambers there, and they think, oh, that looks nice, but in actual fact, a lawyer does much more paperwork than they actually spend in front of a judge, and students don't always know that. So it is a very, very good idea to actually take your child to somebody in that specific trade or field and just let them go and see what it's like, so that they can make up their minds and not going to a direction because of a misconception. Then send the form back to me. I said there again, please send the forms back even though you might still make a small change. I want to ask, please ask your child to hand in the form personally to me in my class, in my hands, so that I can put them into my little heap on my desk. I am worried about forms getting lost, so that's why I'm not going to have them hand them in at the office and there. I want them to hand them into one central place so that I can know that I actually received them. Between classes, just walk past my class, just give it to me in my hand, during break, before school, after school, doesn't matter. Find me, give it to me, and I'll put them into the rest. On the next slide, I just want to show you the subject choice forms, which I handed out. You will see that they are Afrikaans on the one side, English on the other side. Please fill in the side that your child will be taught in the language of teaching. So if your child is going to receive their subjects in English, please fill in the English side. As jou kind in Afrikaans onderrig gaan kry, asseblief vul die Afrikaanse kant in. Dit maak dit makliker vir my, sodat ek nie per ongeluk die kind by 'n Engelse klas indeel in plaas van 'n Afrikaanse klas nie. Ek het die vakkeuse vorm opgedeel in blokke, in die 7 vakgroepe, en al wat ek dan net wil hê is, asseblief, maak 'n kruisie langs die vak. In gevalle soos byvoorbeeld, ek gaan weer terug na die vakke wat in meer as een groep is, soos byvoorbeeld CAT. As die kind CAT en besigheidsstudie wil vat byvoorbeeld, hulle is in meer as een groep. Kies hom net in enige een van die groepe. Dit maak nie saak in watter groep nie. Ek sal hulle rondskuif om die klasse te balanseer indien nodig. Die belangrike is dat ek weet die kind wil CAT en besigheidsstudie vat. Dis die belangrike een op hierdie stadium. En dan daai vorm terug na my toe so gou as moontlik. Baie dankie vir die tyd. Ek hoop dit was darm die moeite werd gewees om bietjie te luister. Ek het beloof om in minder as 'n uur klaar te maak, en ek sien ons maak dit darm redelik gemaklik. My e-posadres is daar op die skerm, asseblief. Feel free to email me on that email address if you have any questions. You can email the school as well. Please just keep in mind that I usually get quite a lot of emails and quite a lot of people asking questions. So if it does take me a day or two to get back to you, just please understand it will take me a while. I can't get back to you during the day because then I'm teaching, so I can only get to these emails after 2 in the afternoons. So please email me on that. I'll try and get back to you with everything. If necessary, you are more than welcome to contact the office and make an appointment sometime after 2 p.m. in the afternoons. Ek sal probeer om julle te kan help daarso. En in die meanwhile, baie dankie dat jy ingeskakel het. Goodbye, good luck with your subject choices, and good night.